guys? How we doing? Gosh, there are so many people here. I love it so much. What a night. Hey, if we have not met, my name is Alex Gray. I help direct Veritas here, and I realized that I have been on staff for almost 10 years, which is kind of wild to me. I don't really understand how 10 years is supposed to feel like 3 years. But I've been around here for almost a decade, and I can say confidently, like I mean this when I say it, I love this more and more every single year. Like, truly, this job gets better every year because truly, there's no place like this where college students, I feel like, get to come each week and worship together and find friendships, like do life with each other like this. And it's just really beautiful to me. I really love it. But I think especially this year, I'm pretty sure I'm having more fun than ever. Like, I really think I am. And that's because everywhere that I look, I'm seeing a ton of new faces. So if you're new around here to Veritas, don't worry, I'm not gonna make you stand up or raise your hand. Don't panic, I'm not gonna do that. But I just wanna say, welcome. Like, we've said it in a couple different ways over the last couple weeks, but we really mean it. We believe that however you got here, whatever reason you came to Veritas tonight, we believe that you're supposed to be here. And we're just so happy that you're with us. And we want you to know this is a place where you can belong, a place to call home. This is a place where you get to be a part of something bigger. So I'm happy you're here. And if we haven't met, come introduce yourself afterwards. I want to know your name. I want to know why you're here, how you got to Veritas, all that. I love it. But if it helps, I'll tell you first. I'll kind of let you in on how I ended up at Veritas, my freshman year of college. So just to set the scene, it is 2010, and it is the height of hipster fashion. And if you don't know what that is, that's all right. But all you gotta do is imagine me in like an eternity scarf, one that loops around and around, it never ends. And I've got a big plaid like flannel on. I'm feeling very cool in my corduroys that I wore all the time, and I have these obnoxious, chunky glasses. They did not look good on me. Okay, you imagining that? You don't have to. I've got a real picture of me in this outfit. I found it, and I was like, gosh, oh my goodness. There's a lot going on here, and I promise you it was cool back then. I don't know where the eternity scarf, it must have been like close by in my car or something. But anyway, it's 2010, and it's the start of my second semester as a freshman. And I had just come off of a first semester where I had honestly ended up feeling really, really lost. And like the first semester of college, it just did not go the way that I expected it to. I had come to Mizzou, and I didn't really know like who I was or where I was headed in life, and that didn't really scare me, right? That wasn't a big deal, but it meant that when I got to Mizzou, I immediately started looking around for answers. I needed some guidance, some wisdom on who I was, who to be, and so I just would listen to anybody's advice that would give it to me. So I listened to some of my older friends who said, hey, you gotta join a sorority. It'll give you community and identity. I listened to my parents who said, you need to get a business degree. It's gonna set you up for your future. And I listened to professors who said, you gotta join every Mizzou org ever. It's gonna make you known on campus. And I listened to my roommate who said, you gotta go to the bars, you gotta go to the parties. That's where you're gonna get a boyfriend. And I listened to my advisor who said, you gotta go on a study abroad experience. It's gonna be the best experience of your life. I listened to social media and celebrities, old high school friends, classmates, aunts and uncles, like literally anybody who would give me advice, I would listen to it. Who was I? I don't know, but I could hear other people's opinions. But the thing was, all those people, as good as their intentions were, they just left me feeling kind of overwhelmed, right? Like all of those different opinions, all of their advice, it didn't actually give me any real wisdom on who I was. All the voices I was listening to, all it did is it left me more confused, more insecure and definitely more anxious about college. So coming into second semester, I was feeling pretty lost, and a friend of mine invited me to Veritas. And honestly, that's just where things started to change for me, really. Because I hadn't really realized it, but up until that point, I had just been listening to lots of different advice that wasn't making any difference, and I was looking for wisdom in all the wrong places. Nothing around me could really give me the answers that I was looking for. See, college, what it does is it tells you to discover who you are. It tells you to find yourself, but what it doesn't do is tell you where to find that. So here's my question for you guys tonight. Where do you look to? Who do you listen to for wisdom on who you should be? Where do you turn to, or who do you turn to for wisdom? Like, if you're not quite sure, let's just do it this way. Think about your day today. Think about some of the people you talked to. Maybe you called your mom or your dad on your phone. I don't know, maybe you chatted with your roommate or classmate. Maybe you spent time with your boyfriend or girlfriend, just a regular friend. What advice did those people give you today? Like, was there a problem that they helped you solve? Was there a decision that they helped you make? It could be super small, but what wisdom did they offer you today? Or like the time that you spent on social media, okay? Who do you follow? What did TikTok tell you today about things like how to dress or how to eat, how to exercise, travel, whatever it is? Who do you follow? Who are your favorite Instagram influencers, and what did they tell you today? Or I don't know, just think about the ads that you watched, saw. What products did they tell you to buy? What did they tell you about how to spend your money in order to be things like beautiful or trendy or successful? See, I don't know if you realize it, but there's a lot of advice out there. There's a whole lot of advice out there. But if you're like me, you just want some real wisdom. You want some guidance on whether you're on the right track, whether you're doing the right thing, whether you're who you should be. We want real guidance, but the more of opinions we get, the more advice we get, the more confused we get. The more insecure we become, the more anxious we are. So what do we do? Like, how do we fix that? How do we know who actually to listen to? Where do we find real wisdom that we can rely on? Where do we find wisdom that we can rely on? That's a question I want to kind of explore tonight. And I want to do it by looking at a story in Daniel, the book of Daniel in the Old Testament. So last week, Kyle, he kicked off our series in the book of Daniel that we're calling Living in Exile. And just so you know, if you missed it, if you weren't here last week, I think it's worth saying all of our messages, all of our Tuesday night messages, they're on our YouTube page on Veritas Como. And if you weren't here last week, you could just go back and you can listen to it. And I think you should, because it was a great start to our series, okay? So I just wanted to say that. But Kyle, last week, he introduced us to this story in the book of Daniel by telling us that around 600 BC, there was this king, and his name was Nebuchadnezzar. And what he did is he conquered this land called Judah, and he exiled people, brought them out of their homeland and into a city called Babylon. And some of the people that he brought out, that he exiled into Babylon, some of those people he sent through like a training program, okay? Essentially, it was an education on all things Babylon. And then what he did is that he put those same people into what's called the king's inner circle, basically like his political inner circle. And we saw Daniel, who we met last week, he's one of those people. So these people, they're working for literally the biggest empire in the world at that time, led by the most powerful king. And can you just imagine for a second how terrifying that would be, like how intimidating it would be to constantly be around the mighty and confident and victorious king of Babylon. Well, I think it would be, for sure, except for the fact that King Nebuchadnezzar, he had a bit of a secret. He didn't totally know what he was doing. Not really, because he came into power right around this exile as it started. And so at the point in our story, he's kind of new to his reign. He's only a couple years in, and he's not actually convinced that he's doing a great job. See, what we see in the story that we're just about to jump into, deep down, we see that Nebuchadnezzar, he is a king who's confused and insecure and anxious. So, who does he turn to for wisdom, for guidance? Well, let's jump in. We're going to get into chapter 2 tonight, and we're going to start with verse 1. So, Daniel chapter 2, verses 1 through 3, they say this. In the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams. His spirit was troubled, and sleep left him. Then the king commanded that the magicians, the enchanters, the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans be summoned to tell the king his dreams. So they came in and they stood before the king. And the king said to them, I had a dream, and my spirit is troubled to know the dream. Now, this feels like kind of a weird thing for this king to get hung up on, right? Like, it's just a bad dream, right? Truly, what is the big deal? What are we talking about? Why did he bring all of these people around him to chat about it with him? Seems kind of odd. Well, in ancient Babylonian culture, actually dreams, they were considered to like foreshadow the future. And in particular, the king's dreams, they thought that the king's dream, that had significance for not just his life, but the entire empire. And so a bad dream, like that's not just a bad dream. That's not a nightmare. That's a bad omen of what is coming ahead. Which means that you would really want to know what that dream meant if you believed that, right? You would want to be able to know exactly what was coming so that you could prepare, so that you could protect yourself against enemies or disasters. So this is an example of what's called a dream tablet. And archaeologists found this in the ancient city of Nineveh, and they think this was probably from like the 15th century BC. And what we see is that for centuries, like millennia, Babylonians, what they would do is they would collect all sorts of dreams, and then they would record the interpretation on stone tablets at the beginning, but then later on, they would compile them into these massive books. And they completely relied on these to give them guidance, to give them wisdom. So that's what's going on as we set up this dream. So Nebuchadnezzar, he has this dream, right? And it freaks him out. And so what he does is he wants guidance. And so he calls up all the smartest dudes that he knows. He calls up all his wisest men, and he brings them to him. And some of those men, we see, are magicians. Some are sorcerers. And some are what are called Chaldeans. And those are men, people who are especially known for astrology and their interpretation of dreams. And so we see this group of people come together, and what happens next in this story is honestly wild, but it's a really long story. So I'm about to give you like the Cliff Notes version, right? Okay, if you want to, later on, you can read the whole thing. It's a great story. It's truly wild. But you could find it in that notebook that we hopefully gave to you last week, that Daniel notebook that you might have. If you don't have one of them, we have a couple left. Let us know. But for now, I'm just going to give you the gist, okay? So Nebuchadnezzar, he's got this dream, and it's weirding him out. So he gets all his people together, and the Chaldeans, they pipe up, and they say, hey, don't worry. This is not a big deal. All you got to do is tell us what the dream is, and we'll go ahead and interpret it for you. We'll tell you what the dream meant. And he goes, no. See, what you have to do is you actually have to tell me what the dream is first, and then you have to interpret it, okay? And if you don't do that, I'm gonna kill all of you, okay? And then I also have to destroy your homes too. I'm so sorry. It's kind of an overreaction, right? I don't know. But he says, sorry, those are the consequences. And yet, here's the perk. Don't worry, there's an upside. If you go ahead and tell me what the dream is, and then you can interpret it, I'll give you great honor, like tons of riches. Life is going to be awesome for you, okay? Those are your two choices. And the wise men, understandably, they're not super into those two options. And so they try again and they say, look, just tell us what the dream is, right? We'll tell you the interpretation. That's what you really want anyway. Let's skip the other part. But Nebuchadnezzar, he doubles down and he says, no, I know what you're doing. You're just trying to buy time. Like, if you're actually legit, you will be able to tell me what this dream is. That will prove to me that you can interpret it correctly. And at this point, the wise men, they kind of get fed up. And they go, look, dude, there is not a man on earth who can meet the king's demand. For no great and powerful king has asked such a thing of any magician or enchanter or Chaldean. The thing that the king asks is difficult, and no one can show it to the king except the gods whose dwelling is not with the flesh. See, nobody is going to be able to answer what you're looking for. No one has that kind of knowledge, that kind of wisdom to give you, except, of course, the Babylonian kings, but they're not really around. He says, yes, but I still want the answer. And what we see is that Nebuchadnezzar, he's just looking for wisdom in all the wrong places. He's turning to literally anyone, anything that could possibly give him wisdom and answer, but he's coming up short. He's still confused. He's still insecure. He's still anxious. And so what he does is he takes it out on these wise men and he sentences all of them to death. But then, just in the nick of time, at the same time that he does this, our main character, Daniel, who we met last week, he shows up in the story. And he requests this last-minute appointment with Nebuchadnezzar. And that's not because he knows what the dream is yet, but he knows exactly where he's going to go to find the answer. So Daniel, immediately, he goes to his 3 friends, okay? And he gets together, and the 4 of them pray to the God of heaven and earth for wisdom, to tell them what the dream is. And in the very next verse, God gives them the dream. He says, okay, here's the dream. It's of a statue, okay? And this statue is made of 4 different kinds of metals, and these 4 different kinds of metals represent 4 kingdoms. It's a statue that maybe, we don't know for sure, but maybe looked somewhat like this. But then there's a massive rock, and it symbolizes God's kingdom. And what it does is it comes slamming into this statue and just blows it to pieces, absolutely crushes it to dust. It's a really weird dream, honestly. And there's a lot that we could get into with this dream. But what I'm really far more interested in is the way that Daniel responds to God right after he gives him this wisdom, after he reveals the dream to Daniel. So let's look at verses 20 to 23 of chapter 2. This is how Daniel responds. This is what he says. He says, "Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, to whom belong wisdom and might. He changes times and seasons. He removes kings, sets up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells with him. To you, O God of my fathers, I give thanks and praise, for you have given me wisdom and might, and have now made known to me what we asked of you, for you have made known to us the king's matter." See, Daniel is not confused about where wisdom comes from or who it belongs to. Daniel, he knows that wisdom only comes from God. Daniel seeks wisdom only from God. And he asks God for wisdom, and God gladly gives it to him. See, when Daniel, when he needs wisdom, when he needs guidance and answers and advice, he heads straight to God. He turns to God first. Is that what you and I do? Like, is that our response? When we're needing wisdom or advice or opinions on something that we're dealing with, do we do what Daniel does? Well, I ask because honestly, in my own life, that's not always my response. Far too often, more than I want to admit, I go find the answers on my own, or I ask a friend for what they think. I mean, I go to social media or the internet and I look there for wisdom first. But the Bible, it's saying that wisdom is found with God. Wisdom is found with God. 1 John 3:20, it's a verse in the New Testament, and it says that God knows everything. Everything. Like God is the one who holds all knowledge. But not just that, there's another verse, Romans 8:28, and it says that God wants what's best for us. So God knows everything, and he's working everything together for our good. That's what wisdom is all about, right? It's about having knowledge and then applying it for our good, for what is right. And the Bible says that's what God is all about. That's what he loves to do. That's what he loves to do. And so if that's true, if God knows everything and wants what's best for us, why wouldn't we turn to him for wisdom first? Right? Like, if God knows everything and he wants what is good, what is best for you, then you should turn to him for wisdom. I think we just need to kind of let that sink in, that logic, that statement. If God is in all control, if God knows everything, and he wants what's best for you, if that is true, then turn to him for wisdom. If you're thinking, okay, yeah, I think I might believe that. That sounds good. Or yes, I absolutely believe that, but I just don't know how to go get that. Then I totally understand. But here's the trick. If you want to get God's wisdom, if you want God's wisdom, all you have to do is spend time with him. That's all. Spend time with God. God actually wants to spend time with you. I don't know if you know that. I don't know if you believe that, really believe that, but God actually enjoys spending time with you. He's inviting you into prayer, into just talking to him throughout the day, asking him for clarity or direction on things, guidance on decisions that you're making. And he's inviting you into reading the Bible. I mean, it could just be reading a gospel like Matthew, just a little bit every day, but spending time with God in our Bible. And he's inviting us, he's inviting you to spend time with him in worship, singing songs, hearing truth here on Tuesday nights, right here on Sunday mornings at the Crossing. See, spend time with God. And when you do, I promise that he's going to start giving you wisdom. I promise he's going to start changing your life. Rather than things like confusion and insecurity and anxiety, you'll start to find clarity and confidence and peace. See, Proverbs, which is the book of wisdom, one of them in the Bible, it puts it like this. It says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. It will be healing to your flesh and refreshment to your bones. That's what we need. God's wisdom is what we need. God's wisdom is what offers us clarity and confidence and peace. God's wisdom offers us something that nothing else can offer us. So turn to him. Go to God first for wisdom, for clarity, for guidance. Seek his wisdom. But when you do that, know that it's not always going to be easy. I have to say that. God's wisdom, it is always best, but it's not always easy. Sometimes it just takes time, and other times it's just hard to follow. Sometimes it's not even what we think we really want. But that's why we just can't do this alone. Like we have to have people around us who are encouraging us to turn to God again and again and again for wisdom. See, as the music team comes back up, I want to share a story with you guys about a freshman who I met on our first Tuesday night meeting last year. She and her best friend, they came to this Tuesday night meeting on traditions, and they came to Veritas because they knew that they wanted a college ministry. They knew that they wanted to join a small group. They knew they wanted to grow in their faith, all of that. And so that's what this girl did. She jumped 2 feet in, and it went really well for her, at least at first. Until about a month later, she texted me, and she asked if we could get lunch sometime soon. And so we did. We grabbed lunch, and about halfway through our conversation, she just kind of opened up, and she said, hey, you know what? I don't know if I want this whole Jesus thing anymore. I think I believe it's true. I think I want to follow him. But honestly, I'm so anxious all the time. And the only thing that has been making me feel even a little bit better is drinking. So I guess I know that God knows what's best for me, but I don't know. Other people are telling me I'm better to be around when I'm drunk. My parents don't really care that I'm underage. And right now, the Bible, it just doesn't make much sense to me. She goes, I'm not sure if turning to God for answers is worth it anymore. And it was the most vulnerable, honest response I had gotten in a long time. And so first I just thanked her for telling me. And then I asked, hey, who else have you gotten to talk to about this? And it turned out her best friend knew, but nobody else really knew. Nobody in Veritas, none of her friends who followed Jesus. And so I gave her a little bit of a challenge. I said, what if you bring people in? What if you bring people into this? Go talk to your small group leaders. Maybe choose 1 or 2 or 3 people in your small group and just ask for their thoughts, Ask them to pray with you for wisdom. See what happens. And so she did. She did. She brought people in. She brought people into prayer with her. And what I saw is little by little over the next year is she started saying no to all of these other voices that were telling her who to be and how to live, and yes to God's wisdom in her life. And more, she was convinced. She was convinced that God knew everything, that he wanted what was best for her, and that he was worth turning to. I asked her the other day to just kind of comment on how her small group impacted her freshman year. And this is what she said. She said, through my small group, I learned what it was like to truly follow Jesus as a college student. The girls in my group were able to hold me accountable and help me grow, and I could not have done it without them. In a culture that is so different from Jesus, it's easy to get pulled away. Having a group of girls to keep me grounded and pull me back to him when I was running away was so important for me. See, here at Veritas, we want to be a group of people that's pulling each other toward Jesus. We want to be people who are helping each other seek Jesus, turn to him, look for his wisdom. We want to be a group that points people to Jesus, and we want you guys to be a part of that. We want you to be a part of that. We do. We want to be a community that does that well. And so I just ask that you, whether you have been here for 4 years or you just got here tonight, I ask that you come alongside us this semester. That you spend time with Jesus, that you sing praise with us, that you read through Daniel with us, that you join a small group, that you pray with people. And as you do that, let's just see what God does. I'm going to pray for us to that end. Jesus, we thank you for being the God of heaven and earth, the one who knows all things and who deeply wants to spend time with us, who wants what is best for us. We thank you for the fact that you reveal wisdom to us when we ask for it. We thank you that you are a God who gives clarity and confidence and peace. God, help us turn to you. Help us say no to other voices and turn to you for the wisdom that gives life. There is no one, nothing else that can offer us what you do. And so we ask that we would fix our eyes on you. Jesus, it's in your name we pray. Amen.